Welcome back, everybody, to The Art of a Peaceful Mind. My name is Kim Root, and today we have with us Wendi Babcock. She's a professional speaker, and oh boy, I forgot. I'm going to introduce her and let her talk about it. Hi, Wendi.
Hi,
Welcome.
thanks, Kim. I'm Wendi Babcock. I'm a professional speaker and certified complaint-free trainer for a complaint-free world. It's a mouthful.
Right, the complaint-free world. I love that.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah. So, how did you get into doing this? I heard it's an interesting story, or just like
Yeah.
yeah.
So I like to tell people it just kind of fell into my lap. I was not by trade a speaker. I worked at a hospital for 20 plus years in the business office doing coding and transcription. And after leaving a 13-year marriage with domestic violence, I started to read and listen to a lot of personal development books, to kind of find myself again, get a positive mindset. And so I don't run into that again, obviously. You want to change those patterns of why you're attracting that. So I was listening to a book by Pam Grout on learning how to be positive and abundant and all that. And she mentioned a complaint-free world and this 21-day complaint-free challenge. And I stopped the Audible when she said that because I thought, this is just brilliant.
Yeah.
What's more negative that we do than complaining, right? So I started to research it. They called me the Google Queen at work, by the way. So I went on Google right away and I Googled the complaint-free world. And I learned all about this pastor in Kansas City, Missouri, who decided to challenge his congregation to go 21 days consecutively without complaining. And the crazy thing is, this thing grew like wildfire. People who took the challenge kept coming back to Will Bowen, and I don't have my bracelet on, but the way you keep track of your day is you wear a complaint-free challenge bracelet. If you catch yourself complaining, criticizing, or gossiping, because those are all forms of complaining, you switch your bracelet to the other wrist. So the idea is to go 21 days with the bracelet on one wrist. So it took the average person 4 to 8 months to complete the challenge.
Wow.
It's very difficult.
We don't even know how much we do that, right? It's such
Right.
a habit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that habit. It's unconscious. So after I learned about that, I went to social media, looked at Will Bowen, and as I said, fate, being in the right place at the right time. That day, Will had posted that he wanted to train 10 people from around the world to share his vision of a complaint-free world. And so I was just so excited about it. I'm like, I just learned about this. I don't have any speaking experience, but why not?
Yeah.
And so I applied, and I'm now one of 7 complaint-free trainers in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
Serendipity. You just fell into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just in the right place, I think, in my life to kind of get out of my comfort zone, because otherwise that's really scary to get up on stage and speak, right? I had never done it. So it just was at that pivotal moment in my life where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just take a leap of faith and try this. And it's just been amazing ever since.
So, what kinds of things do you see people struggling with when they take this challenge on? Like, what is a
Right.
typical? Why does it take 8 months?
Because we're so programmed. Because,
Yeah.
a habit, they say it takes 21 days to create a habit. Because our brain's like efficiency. So when we start a new behavior, our brain has neurons that fire, of course. And then when you keep repeating it, it builds bridges so that information travels more freely. So the more we do something, the more it becomes a habit. So when we're used to complaining all the time and criticizing and gossiping, it becomes our default mode. So you really do not recognize that you're doing it.
Right.
So by bringing it to your attention, it's amazing when you realize how much. And I believe the statistic is people complain up to 50 times a day.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Because there's a lot to complain about. We got weather, sports, family, work. It just can be a nonstop cycle.
Traffic.
Yeah, traffic, yeah. And so what we teach with that is it's only spoken complaints that count in the challenge. So we want to change the words that we're speaking because that changes your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, then you create a different world for yourself when you change your thoughts and your words. So this is how it creates this whole new world of positivity even if you don't complete the challenge, just by taking the challenge and becoming more aware, it really does change your life. It's pretty amazing.
Mm. Are there any specific examples that you have of what happened with people's lives?
Well, and Will Bowen also has created this new platform called the Complaint Free Life Program. So for people who are struggling with taking the challenge, they need more support. He created this platform so that once a week we go live on a private Facebook group. You get specialized training in it. Well, not training, I shouldn't say. Kind of more of a schooling. He teaches you about complaining. There's an acronym called GRIPE, GRIPE, and that's the 5 reasons why we complain. So the G is get attention. We complain to get attention. We want to be acknowledged. You're in an elevator, it's awkward. And, you just stand in there and with another person you don't know. And it's not until somebody complains about the weather, sports, whatnot, that you're like, oh, now we can talk. You've acknowledged me. You broke that silence. So that's get attention. The R is remove responsibility. So this is when somebody's complaining to remove themselves from a responsibility of doing something. Our kids are a great example. Go clean your room. I can't. I've got too much homework, or I've got this, and then they complain to remove responsibility from doing the task. I is inspire envy. This one surprises people. So people sometimes complain to inspire envy or brag. So think about when you're maybe at work, this might happen. Your friend comes up to you and she's like, oh, can you believe what Becky's wearing today? Do you see how tight her pants are? Right? Right. And so what she's saying is, I'm better than Becky. I would never dress that way. Look at me, I'm better than her. So we're inspiring envy by complaining, right? The P is for power. We do this in groups of friends and families especially. Think about, I have a sister, we're 2 years apart, very close. When we fight like cats and dogs. So when we'd be fighting, the race was on to get to mom. Why? Because whoever gets to mom first gets to tell their side of the story and get mom on your side. So that's power. There's power in numbers. It makes you feel like, hey, mom's got my back. And that happens at work a lot too, with coworkers complaining to the boss. And then the E stands for excuse poor performance. Someone's performed or done something poorly. Now they're going to make excuses and complain about all the reasons why they weren't able to do the task appropriately or they turned it in late. So then what we do is with GRIPE then, for each one of those, we make suggestions of ways that you can handle that. Once you identify why the person's complaining, you could say, forget attention, you could say, well, what's going well with? Instead of, complaining with them. Well, tell me something that's good that happened this week. What's been the best part of your day? And just turning the conversation around. So each one of those things then I give tips and ideas of how you can respond in a different manner.
Okay. So, so a lot of, it sounds like when you went through the different things, a lot of it's coming from, if you want to look at why do we complain in the first place, why do we need to do that, or that it's coming from a lot of insecurity. Insecurity, needing attention, needing to be acknowledged.
Right.
Which, I see that all the time, and I've felt it in myself too, feeling weak inside then.
And there's really a feeling of empowerment because it is awkward. The first few times, like even I tried to use the sentences like, well, hey, tell me something that's gone well today. It feels awkward because they're not used to it. So you feel like, oh, they're going to think I'm weird, or why are they asking me that? I just told them everything that's wrong. Why do they want to know what's right? So it does feel weird. It's out of your comfort zone. But once you do, it feels empowering because you're taking, kind of a stance for your own well-being to be more positive and not negative.
Right. And it really isn't first nature, I guess you call it.
Right. And I always thought I was a positive person until I took the challenge. I'm like, this is hard.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Because I think we think in our minds that we're positive, we're loving and all of that, but.
Right. Well, and the biggest question I get is people say, well, what exactly is a complaint? Like if I had a friend come to me, she's like, well, both my parents were just diagnosed with cancer. If I talk about that, is that complaining? And I said, no, that's not complaining. Unless you come to me and are like, oh, I've got to take my parents to all these appointments and that's different.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so the definition of a complaint is to express grief, pain, or discontent. But there's a bigger definition behind it that we use, and that's having that underlying tone of, for me, the world is out to get me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different perspective, a perception on a situation. The example I like to use, when we were growing up, we go out to eat probably once every couple weeks. And my mom would always order milk with her meal. And 9 times out of 10, they'd bring her food and they wouldn't bring her milk.
Mm-hmm.
And so the server would come over, how is everything? My mom would say, oh, it's just fine. And they'd walk away. And then she'd look at us and say, can you believe they forgot my milk again? Every time we come here, and then she'd just go off about it. Right? So she's not solving the problem. Mm-hmm. She didn't fix it, and she's complaining about it. So the idea is a complaint doesn't solve a problem. It stays focused on the problem, keeps you stuck. So in order to solve the problem, had the server come over and said, how is everything? She could have just said, oh, you seem to have forgot my milk. Oh, okay, problem solved. Mm-hmm. So to speak directly and only to the person who can solve your problem is not complaining. Mm-hmm. So that's how we kind of differentiate. If you can go to the person or maybe a team of people or something who can help you solve the problem, you're working towards a solution, not being stuck on that problem.
Right. Okay. So then you're empowering yourself.
Yeah.
By being positive.
Exactly. And you're solving the problem. So this way we don't stay rooted in the problem, where if we don't have it solved right away, we go home, we tell our significant other, we call our mom, our sister, and complain some more. We vent, which we all think is healthy, which isn't.
Yeah, right. You have to find the appropriate way to let go, not right. Blaming or venting or getting angry. Right. It doesn't really help anything.
Exactly.
To let off steam. I'm not saying I never get angry. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, I should share too real quick. There's actually side effects health-wise of chronic complaining. Stanford University actually did a study on the brain with chronic complainers, and it showed that people who were complaining chronically, it actually was shrinking the hippocampus in the brain. So that's our problem-solving, intelligent thought, and that's the same area of our brain that Alzheimer's attacks.
Really?
Yeah. So that was very significant when I learned that. It also, when you complain, it raises that stress hormone, your cortisol, and increased levels of cortisol, of course, can cause all kinds of problems.
Right.
Depression, sleep problems, you name it. So yeah, it actually has an actual health effect on your body when you complain all the time.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you study when you talk about it with people, when you're on stage and you're talking about it, you obviously you talk about the process and what you can do instead of complaining. So do you all, sounds like you also talk about the science behind it, or like how it affects the brain, how it affects the body, how it affects your health? Can you talk a little more about that?
Right. So basically, like when I do a presentation, I give them the background, of course, of a complaint-free world, teach them who Will Bowen is and the whole movement of a complaint-free world. I talk about what a complaint is, what it's not, why it's bad. So I go over why it's bad for relationships, health, and your career success, because obviously we know it's damaging to career success too, and how it keeps you focused on the problem. I go through gripe. So I go through all the reasons why we complain. I give tips and things that we can say to turn the conversation around. I talk about why complaining is competitive and it's contagious. So the best example, I love telling this story too, is people are like, it's contagious and competitive. I'm like, think about it. Especially if I don't know if you have a bigger audience of women, but get a group of women together. All it takes is one woman to talk about her birthing story. And everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and complain about how much worse theirs was, how much more pain they had, how many hours they took. So it always escalates. So when one person complains, it escalates. So I talk about that. I introduce the 21-day complaint-free challenge, and I give them kind of the rules with that. And then I hopefully have inspired them to take the challenge and try and live a complaint-free life.
So yeah, the vision of the founder, what's his name again?
Will Bowen.
Will Bowen, right?
Yep.
His vision is big because he's not saying how can you be complaint free, but he's saying a complaint free world, which is a vision of a whole world,
right?
Complaint free.
Well, and here's how big this has grown. Okay, so when I talked about him handing out the bracelets and challenging his congregation, it started with 250 people. So there was 250 of those bracelets handed out. That was in June or July of 2006. To date, they've distributed over 11 million of those bracelets. World in over 106 countries, and Maya Angelou was actually presented with the 6 millionth bracelet. So
I think what's that?
It's gotten pretty big.
Yeah. I do remember. I think I remember some of my students having those. Now that I think about it,
yeah.
And them talking about flipping it to the other arm. Where did he start?
Kansas City, Missouri, and he's still there. He just was a minister in his church when he started. And now he basically travels all over the world, and he's #1 best-selling international author as well now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a great vision.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So how have you found that it changed your life?
I think besides the speaking aspect of it, I mean, just learning to get on stage. Once I took the challenge, I was noticing bigger changes just from that positivity switch in my mindset, from not complaining to being, I found I was more willing to step outside my comfort zone. So that's when I ended up quitting that 40-hour-a-week job to do this full time. And I don't think I would have taken that big of a leap, even a year and a half ago. It wasn't until I took the challenge that it really impacted my life. And my husband's as well. About a month after I quit my job, we bought a catering business. He worked in a restaurant as a manager for 20 years. And so then we're like, you know what? Anything's possible.
Yeah.
And so now he runs a successful catering business. And again, it's just things that probably would not have happened, at least not so soon for us, had we not kind of been on this whole new adventure with a complaint-free world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you stop, is there a time? It seems to me like people are so used to complaining or starting a conversation with a complaint that it might be hard for people to have something to say when you might be a lot quieter, right?
I was. And I was working at a hospital with mostly women. So break times were a huge challenge for me to just, you hear the complaining and you're like, I want to add to this, but I'm like, no, you can't do it. And so I was just very vocal with the girls I worked with, like, hey, I'm trying to take this challenge. I'm going to try not to complain. And some of them were like, good luck, not for me. And some were like, oh, curious and wanted to try it too. But it is difficult. It's difficult to be that positive person because people are like, well, we don't really want to talk to her. She's not going to complain with us.
Yeah. Well, partly because they don't know what to say, but partly because it probably feels uncomfortable, right?
And it does.
To have that come up in your face. Yeah.
Right. Because it makes us feel self-conscious about when you're around somebody else who's really positive, not complaining, it makes you a little bit more self-conscious and you feel a little bit bad then about gossiping and criticizing, since it is kind of the default mode. So it just brings about a little more maybe self-esteem issues being around people like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but on the flip side, you start learning who are the negative people in your life, the Debbie Downers, and you actually start to attract more positive people in your life. I noticed that was a big switch for me too. People who I'd been friends with for years kind of started to fall off, weren't around as often. Mm-hmm. But then I started bringing in kind of a new group of friends, part of the Polka Dot Powerhouse group that I'm a member of.
Oh, right. What is that again?
It's Polka Dot Powerhouse. It's a women's connection company. It's international. And so a friend of mine was a member, and she's like, Wendy, you've got to come to one of these meetings. You'll be amazed. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go. So finally, months later, I'm like, I'm going to go to one of these meetings. I was kind of like a Debbie Downer about it. I'm like, I'll just go to Pacifier. I got there, and I sat in that meeting, and I was so excited to be around female entrepreneurs, business leaders, even just stay-at-home moms who were so passionate and positive that I left there on a high. I actually joined that day because I was like, it's a room full of my people, people who really got it. And so we connect. We do Zooms like this, or we meet in person for coffee, and we just get to know each other. We build relationships. And so it helps, because then when I have someone come to me saying, hey, I'm looking for someone who has this skill or business, I can say, oh, hey, this is my dot sister, so-and-so. I know her on a personal level. She does great business, and she's a really great gal. Here you go. So it's a great referral company as well, because you get to actually know people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, being a member of that was huge. And I don't think I would have joined that either if I wouldn't have done the complaint-free challenge.
So, Wendy, what do you have to offer for a free gift for all the people that are watching today?
Well, anyone who's wanting to take the complaint-free challenge, they can just contact me, and they'll get a free complaint-free challenge bracelet for just the cost of shipping. And then I'll also send you a downloadable tips and tricks to help you stop complaining and learn a little bit about what complaining is, and just teach you about the actual challenge.
Okay, that sounds great. Makes it easy for everybody, right?
Right.
Start right away. So we'll have a link to that on the page, so they can just click and get the download right away. And that's great. So before we finish today, do you have anything that you'd like to say to people, or any tips you'd like to give them to help them with a peaceful mind, inner strength?
Yeah. Mostly just to be mindful of the words you're speaking, because when we change the words that we speak, it changes the thoughts that we think, which then, as we know, changes the world around us. So just thinking about what you're saying. Is it helpful, or is it hurtful? Are you complaining? Or are you trying to solve a problem? So just stopping to think before we speak is huge. Also, meditation and any personal development you can get your hands on. Obviously, vlogs, YouTube, channels such as this one. These are great ways to stay positive and uplifted. Find that inner peace, so you don't have the necessity, feel like you need to complain all the time.
Right. And it's okay if it does feel uncomfortable while you're going through it in the beginning, because
it does.
once you start being positive, then all you see how much negativity is there, right? That's okay. Right. We all have it.
Right. And that's just it, is because then you'll create the new habit so that your brain fires again, creates those new bridges for positivity. And that becomes your default mode then.
Great. So thanks so much for joining us today. And everybody here, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.